it won't go.
It's crazy because, like, it's rinse and repeat. I suspect that no matter where they rebuild another canal, they will still inevitably run into the same issues if they don't actually fix the underlying, much larger problem.
Back to his homeland.
Back to his homeland? Where's that?
I just miss him.
Waiting for Hasan. What will he do when he's live? Open up the casino, let the gambler in. It's time to sin. Well, now what are we waiting for? Waiting for Hasan. Thanks, I enjoy.
Call them a pedophile and record their reactions for the internet. Okay, that you should do that. Yeah, you're right. So we have to be their therapist? Fuck that. Wait, what do you mean? Chatter being like, that's emotional labor, sweetie. Bir dakika Murat. Al. Dur. Al şuna bak. I'm not gonna do emotional labor for you, little bro. It's crazy. My brother is bitchless. How do I save him? Get him into the gym. You're absolutely right. My grandfather and I used to talk politics. We were very civil. I used to express to him my socialist ideologies, and he agreed, except he calls himself a national socialist instead. Just don't be weird, chatters. Be normal. Okay, stop.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has threatened to retake control over the Panama Canal. Trump told supporters Panama was charging too much for U.S.-owned ships to pass through, considering how much Washington spent to build the waterway more than 100 years ago. Panama's president has hit back, insisting control of the canal is non-negotiable.
It's less than a month until he's back at the White House, and President...
Bro, he's making an impact. He's on this new era. He's on his American colonies arc. I gotta pee.
Elect Donald Trump is showing what his approach to international trade may look like. Addressing his supporters at a rally in Arizona, he accused the Central American state of Panama of overcharging U.S. vessels for passing through the Panama Canal.
This complete ripoff of our country will immediately stop. It's going to stop. The United States has a big and vested interest in the secure, efficient, and reliable operation of the Panama Canal.
The U.S. helped finance and construct the canal 110 years ago and finally handed over control of the passage to Panama in 1999. Passing through the Panama Canal significantly reduces maritime travel time by connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, enabling more efficient global trade. The president-elect fears other countries could gain too much influence on the canal.
When President Jimmy Carter foolishly gave it away for $1. During his term in office, it was solely for Panama to manage and not for China or any other country to manage. You see what's going on there? China. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America.
Panama's president José Raúl Molina rejects that China has any say in the management of the canal and insisted everyone has equal treatment.
The canal is not controlled directly or indirectly by China, the European Community, the United States, or any other power. As a Panamanian, I reject any statement that misrepresents this reality. The canal will continue to be in Panamanian hands as the patrimony of our nation and guaranteeing its use for the peaceful and uninterrupted transit of ships of all nations.
While Trump has yet to clarify how he plans to enforce his threats, the world may have caught a glimpse of what to expect from his second presidency.
The Panama
Why did the U.S. give up Panama Canal by History Matters from 2 years ago, a short animated documentary?
Canal is one of history's great feats of engineering. Connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific, the canal represented a major change in trade between East and West. Saving time for many states and damaging the economies of others. It was finished by the United States in 1914, and these lands in Panama around the canal were under US sovereignty until 1999, because in 1977 President Jimmy Carter had agreed to return it to Panama in return for exactly nothing. But given how useful controlling the canal was, especially during the Cold War, why did the United States do this? Why did the USA give up the Panama Canal for free? So, since Europeans had first discovered the New World, they had dreamed of building a canal straight through Central America. It never happened because digging is quite hard, and digging through a continent is even harder. This didn't stop the French from stepping up in the late 19th century though, since they had just finished building the much longer Suez Canal. The problem with this canal was the environment. Disease and terrain meant that the cost of building the canal soon spiraled out of control, and it wasn't long until the French gave up. In stepped the USA under Theodore Roosevelt, who wanted to finish the canal to expand US influence in the region. His government tried to strike a deal with the Colombian government, but they said no. This forced him to respect their wishes and, oh wait no, rebels. In the north of the country, the Panamanians had revolted to achieve independence, and the US decided that it was going to help them, providing that they got the canal and control over the territory around it. And the new Panama government said yes, since without US support, Colombia would have reconquered the country. The canal was finished in 1914, and it remained under US control until 1999. During this time, the canal had been incredibly useful, especially in World War II, when it allowed US ships to easily cross between the Atlantic and the Pacific. And the US also used it to block communist warships in the Cold War. Plus, over the decades, the transit fee to use the canal had made the US government lots of money. Yet, in 1977, after decades of negotiations, President Carter agreed to a phased handover of the canal zone back to Panama in return for nothing. So why? Well, there were several reasons. The first was diplomacy with the rest of the Americas. American control of the canal zone, particularly the military bases which were there to protect it, was seen as imperialist by most nations in Central and South America. That and the Suez Crisis from a couple of decades earlier had cemented the idea that the world's waterways should be neutral. Carter wanted to return the canal to Panama to assure the rest of the Americas that the United States was going to be a good neighbour, and to also make sure that they wouldn't make friends with the USSR. Which brings us to point number 2, competition. Part of the 1977 treaty stipulated that the US would make the canal neutral to all nations, which meant letting communist navies use it too. Carter agreed to this because he was concerned that the USSR would finance another canal in either.
I'll never forgive Carter, that pussy, for doing that. Letting the goddamn commies use our canal.
Southern Panama or potentially Nicaragua. As such, agreeing to hand it over in 20 years meant that building another canal wouldn't be worth it. And furthermore, the US could keep collecting transit fees during that time. The third reason was military. The Panama Canal was important to American naval strategy since it allowed for quick redeployment of its ships to different oceans. However, in the days of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, it was no longer as important. As such, to Carter's administration...
Shooting at a Trump rally? What? Why would there be a fucking Trump rally on Christmas Eve? Chatter, are you a mobile chatter? What's happening? Trump's doing a Christmas Eve rally? What the fuck?
The cost of keeping the canal outweighed the benefits.
Chatter's like 6 months late.
Over. And after this, despite some grumblings, the USA was treaty-bound to hand over the canal, a process which would be completed by the end of the millennium, which meant that after this, Panama would go from being politically cut in half to just geographically. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching with us.
He's using Internet Explorer. He's not even, dude. He's on a Motorola Razr. When you have issues like that, the solution, at least historically, has been implementing slave labor. That's usually seen as the solution to that kind of thing.
Killed nearly 20 fall.
Wait, so climate change and inconsistent rainfall could potentially cause a massive logistical issue down the line? Is that what we're gonna get a bucket? Get a bunch of people with buckets and just like dump water into
your
it,
family member-
and you can solve that problem that way, I think. You know what I mean?
Dam region.
Yes, global warming affects the canal. There was protests last year because there was a mining company that was destroying the rainforest around the canal. Isn't that where the guy killed the protesters? Am I remembering the Santa Claus looking motherfucker who shot the protesters that were climate change protesters? That all the right wingers celebrated on Twitter, by the way.
The newly formed water body is called Gatun Lake.
Oh, the Vince Vintage video
Now
came
this
out
here
on
is-
Tyler Oliveira. My goat, Vince Vintage. I wish this stuff wasn't animated. I would like to see the real trains, but maybe that's just me. And even like the canal too. What? Charlie watched a video with Brace in it. Some of your worlds colliding. Not sure if the OG video is satire or not.
Recently,
spanking therapy is crazy. Okay. Go to the Panama Canal IRL. They have a train that goes from coast to coast in some seasons. There are so many videos on the Isthmus of Corinth. You can walk over and watch the ships pass under you. I want to see. These little animations are pissing me off a little bit. I want to see real life.
You probably know by now, the Panama Canal is dying. You've seen the headlines, watched the videos. The canal is facing a crisis like never before. Its lifeline, water, is drying. Ships are piling up in long queues waiting for days. Freight costs are skyrocketing and the ripple effects are being felt across global trade. And while Panama fights to stay afloat, other countries see an opportunity. They're racing to capture a piece of the $270 billion worth of cargo that passes through the canal annually, and its impressive $4.99 billion yearly revenue by creating their own
When your family member
mega-projects.
calls you a slur, say thank you
This
because
is the race to
Dude,
replace
that's crazy.
the Panama Canal. Which mega project will take the ultimate prize and become the next trade route? One thing is certain, it won't go.
It's crazy because like it's rinse and repeat. I suspect that no matter where they rebuild another canal, they will still inevitably run into the same issues if they don't actually fix the underlying much larger problem, which is climate change. You know, you can't infrastructure your way out of climate change. It is a global problem.
I just miss him.
And
Waiting for Hasan.
so I don't know. During the 2006 issue, the Panamanians voted for a referendum to expand the Panama Canal.
Down without a fight. The Panama Canal is one of the greatest.
I guess you'd have to do a. You'd have to swap your shit. He hates Luigi Mangione from a canal to
No,
maybe
he is just a
trains.
right winger. Like,
There's
what
a
are you
Chinese
talking about?
version.
Ever imagine the
I've
ship
seen this
sailing
one.
above
I've already watched
mountains?
this video. I watched the video. It's fucking so sick. Like I've watched a version of this video, not this exact video, but
China's astonishing ship lifts and
this is
canals,
like stupid. This is the stupidest fucking. I mean, it's so sick. Look at
vessels
this.
weighing thousands of tons are defying gravity and ascending into the sky. Something you wouldn't believe unless you saw it yourself. But how can a ship weighing as much as a skyscraper be lifted hundreds of feet above the ground?
It's incredible.
What kind of technology makes this possible? Time to find out. Dams are powerful tools for generating electricity, controlling floods, and storing water, but they also create enormous barriers by blocking the natural flow of rivers. This wall divides the river into two distinct sections: upstream, where water piles up into a vast reservoir, and downstream, where the water level can be significantly lower. The result is a dramatic elevation difference between the two sides.
This is why Water 7 was one of the best arcs, in my opinion.
Of the dam, ranging anywhere from a few meters to over 100 meters, depending on the dam's size and purpose. And here's the core issue. Ships rely entirely on the continuity of the river. Without a way to traverse this elevation change, the river is effectively split in two, bringing maritime trade and transport to a halt. This disruption not only affects cargo movements, but also the communities that depend on river routes for economic and daily activities. It turns what should be a seamless journey into a dead end, unless there's a solution. Historically, the solution to the problem of elevation differences created by dams was the use of locks. Locks are essentially giant water-filled chambers with gates at either end. Ships enter these chambers and the water level is either raised or lowered to match the next stretch of the river, allowing vessels to continue on their way. The use of locks to solve elevation differences in rivers dates back centuries. In fact, the first grand lock we know of was constructed in China during the 10th century, known as the Grand Canal's double gate lock. But here's the catch. Locks have their limits, especially when it comes to very high elevation differences, like those created by...
So they just said, fuck it, let's make lifts.
...modern megadams. Imagine trying to build a staircase that needs to climb the equivalent height of a 30-story building. You would need countless steps, or in this case, a series of multiple locks. This becomes impractical for several reasons, such as the cost...
You could easily fund one of these if you weren't a fake socialist. True. I could fund two. I just choose not to, you know what I mean? As you guys know, I have $10 gorillion. That is my net worth. My real net worth is my net worth is $10 quintillion. I just choose not to spend it.
Space needed and the time it would take to go through different locks. This is where ship lifts come into play as an elegant and efficient solution. Unlike locks, a ship lift can handle a large elevation change in a single operation. Imagine an elevator but for massive ships weighing thousands of tons. Instead of waiting hours to pass through a series of locks, vessels can be lifted or lowered quickly, saving both time and valuable resources. And there's no better example of this than the colossal Three Gorges Dam ship lift. As one of the largest ship lifts in the world, it's capable of elevating vessels weighing up to 3,000 metric tons. Imagine lifting something as heavy as 500 elephants, or about the same weight as a small skyscraper, 113 meters or 370 feet up in the air, all in just 40 minutes. This makes crossing the height difference created by the dam efficient and surprisingly quick compared to the traditional 5-stage lock system, which could take 3 to 4 hours. This boost in efficiency is crucial for a dam of this size, located on the busy Yangtze River. Since its opening in September 2016, it has significantly increased the river's freight capacity, allowing for safer and faster shipping while also cutting shipping costs by 25%. This ship lift is a complex piece of technology with some remarkable specifications. The lift chamber itself...
So, did they mention this and I missed it? How do they power it? Do they power it through hydropower or...
is like a giant floating bathtub filled with water, measuring 120 meters long, 18 meters wide, and 3.5 meters deep. The entire structure is suspended by 256 ropes, each connected to 128 double rope pulleys that balance the lift using counterweights. These ropes are anchored to the tops of 4 massive reinforced concrete towers, each towering 169 meters high. This intricate combination of counterweights and ropes allows the ship lift to move with the kind of efficiency and reliability needed for such an enormous task. While the Three Gorges Dam ship lift is an impressive engineering marvel, it's not the only large-scale lift redefining river navigation in China. Another major project pushing the boundaries even further is the Guobutan ship lift, currently the world's largest ship lift, capable of elevating vessels weighing up to 500 tons to a staggering height of 199 meters, or 653 feet.
That's, dude, I can't believe we live in a world where this kind of shit's happening. And like a lot of people are like, oh, Belgium did this, this place did this, that place did this. Like, it's still marvelous. Okay. Like, imagine being on a fucking ship and then you just go on a hydraulic lift. The more impressive part is the lift all the water that 500 tons sits on.
It's taller than a typical 60-story building. This impressive capacity makes the Guobutan lift crucial for enabling smooth river navigation across China's rugged interior. Its sheer lifting power is key to connecting the Wu River with broader economic networks. The lift system consists of not one, but 3 interconnected.
It's pretty crazy that China has this, and there are still, I would say a majority of Americans still think that like the Chinese live in like absolute abject poverty, living in like straw tents and dying of mass starvation with regular frequency, a nation filled to the brim with ghost cities. Like that's wild to me that we can be so oblivious to what the fuck is going on elsewhere. Americans think China is Ohio. Yeah, no one believes that in 2024. My friend, please talk to some normal people in your life, because you are so wrong. There are well-read Americans who believe that. Okay? There are Americans who are well-read who genuinely believe that.
Lifts. First, vertical boat lift, a variable height lift capable of moving vessels between.
Like, there are people who are well-read who genuinely believe this, the thing that I was just mentioning, and also that China is going to collapse any day, and that all major Chinese infrastructure projects are built with like the shittiest build quality, the shittiest standards whatsoever that they could possibly find, and that like their infrastructure is on the verge of crumbling any day now. On top of the, why don't you ban Europors from chat instantly? Like there is a real belief in at least like, I mean, it's American cope in my opinion, but there is a very real belief that like a lot of people think that there is no technological investment occurring in China, and that like the only reason why they were able to build stuff is because they have no OSHA, they don't have regulations, and that their build qualities are dog shit.
Between 72 and 79 meters.
You're partially right. There are hundreds of millions of Chinese who live on $500 a year. Yeah. Also, China is, you know, a massive country, and not only that, but also the cost of living is infinitely cheaper in China as well. So yes, there are still hundreds of millions of Chinese that live in like rural farmland. That is true. Absolutely. Okay. Having said that, however, like if you compare a Chinese tier 1 city and the existence there, it's like comparing American cities to like European cities. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's much cheaper, especially when there is an expansive welfare state on top of everything else. that covers a big chunk of what Americans spend money on. Like, that's why so many people that go to China are like shocked at, for example, the price of rent, even in major cities where they're like, it's so cheap. Yeah, everything is cheaper.
Depending on the downstream water levels. Second, vertical boat lift, a fixed height lift of 127 meters, which is the tallest single boat lift in the world. Upstream vertical boat lift. This lift has a variable descent height of up to 47 meters, depending on the reservoir water levels. The Gupatan system is designed to be both powerful and fast. Each of the
It's so cheap with respect to America wages, you idiot. Wait, what? Why are you mad? First of all, why are you upset? Are you John America? Like, I just don't understand it. First of all, you immediately hit the GDP line, which already is an interesting standard to set because, you know, look at America, wealthiest nation on the planet. Part of the reason why the GDP is so fucking high is because we have created ineffective, expensive, and expansive middlemen. You're the, oh my God, everything is so cheap. I'm bringing my American wages herp derp. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply stating that the reason why Americans are shocked at how fucking cheap everything is because the things are just much cheaper in China, and things are ultimately also cheaper, especially when you have an expansive welfare state in even Europe. I didn't just compare America to China, I compared it to Europe. Yeah, no chatter that says herp derp is going to be 14 years old, okay? This person is 38 years old minimum. We're about to be in 2025. Yo, I'm 30. My management just sent me a Christmas
Tree lifts has a lifting capacity of 1,800 tons, and the lifting speed is approximately 8 meters per minute. This means that a 500-ton vessel can be raised or lowered in just 10 minutes. But what really sets the Gupatan ship lift apart is the network of elevated aqueducts and tunnels that connect these lifts, spanning a total distance of 2.3 kilometers, that's 1.4 miles. This elevated canal system, suspended 100 meters or 328 feet above the ground, is what gives this lift its surreal quality. Ships quite literally sail above mountains.